When I crashed my car, the paramedics called my family. Nobody showed. An hour later, my brother posted, "Road trip with the real crew." I stayed silent. 4 days later, still bruised and bandaged, my phone lit up, 41 missed calls and 1 request on Venmo, $3,100 for the cabin weekend. Everyone's chipping in. Then a message from Mom. "Call back. It's urgent. We can't fix this without you." I got angry and... The day I crashed my car was the day I finally saw my family for who they really were. I hadn't even planned to be on the road that morning. I was supposed to fly back from Denver after a 3-day client conference, but Luke called me the night before, asking if I could send him some money for a weekend cabin trip he wanted to take with our sisters and a few friends. He made it sound urgent, something about needing to book before midnight or losing the deal. He didn't have enough on his card. Said I'd get paid back by Monday. I didn't even hesitate. I told him I'd cover it again. That's just how it worked with my family. They called. I answered. Always. The problem was, the money I sent left me just short for a next-day flight, so I figured I'd drive home through the night instead. I didn't tell anyone that part. No point. They never really asked about the details of my life anyway. I left Denver around midnight. The highways were slick from a light snow that had melted earlier and then frozen over again. About 40 minutes from home, I hit a stretch of black ice near a curve, and that was it. A semi ahead of me lost control, jackknifed across the road. I tried to brake, swerved left, too hard. The wheels lost grip. I spun, hit the guardrail, then flipped. The airbag saved me, probably. But it felt like my insides had been crushed. I remember the metallic taste in my mouth. My ears ringing. Paramedics pulling me out through the passenger side. They cut off my jacket. I asked if the truck driver was okay, but I don't remember their answer. Everything blurred. I passed out. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, tubes in my arm for running. Ribs cracked. Wrist fractured. Arm stitched. Whole right side of my body felt like it had been worked over with a hammer. The nurse told me I was lucky. Said I'd probably be kept for observation a few more days. I asked if anyone had come. She checked the chart. Said the paramedics called all my emergency contacts at the scene. Messages were left. Still, no one showed. I waited. I stared at the ceiling for hours, checking my phone every few minutes. Battery down to 12%. No texts. No missed calls. Then, around 9:30 a.m., my brother posted on Instagram. Photo of him, my sisters Erin and Michelle, and my parents crammed into the SUV, holding up energy drinks and grinning like they were about to hit Coachella. The caption said, "Road trip with the real crew." It had been posted less than an hour after my crash. I read it 3 times. Kept checking the timestamp, thinking maybe it had been posted earlier and just refreshed. It wasn't. They knew. They knew I'd been in a crash. They knew where I was. And they left anyway. Packed up and hit the road like I didn't exist. And that's when something inside me changed. Not with fireworks. Not with rage. Just a snap, like a rope pulled too tight finally giving way. For years, I'd been the one holding everything together. I was the fallback. The helper. The guy who paid for the family beach rentals, the college textbooks, the emergency dental work. I'd send money for bills one week and cover a vacation the next. They always said thank you, but never asked how I was doing. I didn't even expect it anymore. I just kept giving. And when I needed someone, not for money, not for help, just to be there, they weren't. They chose a cabin weekend over their brother in a hospital bed. I stayed silent. I didn't respond to the post. Didn't message anyone. Just lay there in that bed, bruised and bandaged, letting it settle. I thought maybe, just maybe, someone would reach out later. They didn't. Not that day. Not the next. Not until 4 days later, when my phone lit up with 41 missed calls and a Venmo request for $3,100 labeled, "Cabin Weekend." Everyone's chipping in. And right under that, a message from my mom, "Call back. It's urgent. We can't fix this without you." That was the moment I stopped being their safety net. And I haven't looked back since. I didn't respond. Not to the Venmo request, not to the calls, and definitely not to the message from my mom that read, "Call back. It's urgent. We can't fix this without you." I just stared at my phone, still lying in the hospital bed, ribs taped for still in. That message made something click in my brain, but not in the way she probably meant it to. I realized she wasn't calling because something had happened to me. She was calling because something had gone wrong for them. They needed me, again, and that was urgent. My crash, the fact that I was alone in the ER for days, didn't qualify. When they finally discharged me the next day, I was still limping. They asked if I had someone to pick me up. I said no. I didn't even pretend to check. I ordered a rideshare and let the driver talk the entire way while I said nothing. I looked out the window and let the silence stretch. My apartment felt different when I stepped in. Like a place I hadn't really seen in years. It was clean, quiet, everything exactly where I left it. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall for 10 minutes, still wearing my hospital wristband. I could feel every bruise, every cracked rib, and yet the only thing that really hurt was the silence from the people I had spent my life protecting. I slept better that night than I had in years. The next morning, I made a list. Not a dramatic, revenge-fueled list. Just a simple, honest one. Left column, every monthly payment I made for someone in my family. My mom's medication. My dad's half of the mortgage. Aaron's graduate school loan. Michelle's car lease. Luke's temporary credit card debt that I'd been covering for 19 months. Subscription services. Gym memberships. Utilities. Netflix. Everything. I added it up. $2,780 per month. And that was just the recurring stuff. Right column, names of people who had checked in during the hospital stay. 3 names. My grandmother, who called every night since she found out. My Uncle Keith, who offered to drive across state lines to pick me up if I needed help. And Brian, a coworker I barely spoke to outside of meetings, who sent me a voice message saying if I needed food, he'd have some dropped off, no questions asked. No one else. Not my mom. Not my dad. Not my sisters. Not Luke. I sat with the list for a while. Then I opened my banking app and started canceling. One by one. I shut off every automatic transfer. I unsubscribed them from everything they didn't pay for. I removed myself from shared family plans. I ended the cable at my parents' house. Cancelled Michelle's gym pass. Pulled the plug on the electric bill Luke had conveniently forgotten was in my name. I didn't send any messages. No warning. No drama. That afternoon, Luke messaged again. Said the cabin trip had gone a bit over budget and that I probably missed the Venmo request. He added a laughing emoji like this was some inside joke between us. Said he'd appreciate the payment soon. Just so everyone's even. I left it on read. Later, Michelle called. I ignored it. Then Aaron. Then my mom. My dad. 10 missed calls by dinner. The next morning, my mom texted again. What's going on? You know we've always been there for each other. I stared at the message and felt something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time, clarity. They believed that. They really did. They thought this whole thing had been equal. That me constantly putting out fires while they danced through life was just family helping family. That me draining my savings to keep them comfortable was what older brothers, sons, uncles were supposed to do. But I finally understood something they never had to think about. They didn't need me. They needed what I gave them. And now they didn't have it. For the first time, they were going to have to figure it out on their own. And I was going to sit back and watch. It took less than 48 hours for the cracks to start showing. Luke was the first to break. He texted me the next morning, pretending nothing was wrong. Just a casual, "Yo, can you spot me $150 until Friday?" message like we hadn't just gone radio silent after a car crash. I didn't answer. 5 minutes later, he texted again. "Okay, seriously. Did I do something? Just let me know, man." Still nothing from me. By that evening, I got the first real attempt at guilt. Aaron sent a group text. "Hey, we need to talk. This family's falling apart." Like I was the glue that had stopped sticking. Like their world was crumbling because I dared to say nothing. Then Michelle called. This time, she left a voicemail. Her voice was calm, a little too calm, like she'd rehearsed it. Said she wasn't sure what was going on, but hoped I knew how much everyone loves me. She ended it with, "We're all stressed right now. Just call us. We'll figure it out like always." That was the phrase that did it, like always. Because yeah, we always figured it out. But by we, they meant me. I figured it out when Dad's business nearly folded and I took a second job to cover their mortgage. I figured it out when Erin totaled her car and needed a replacement to finish school. I figured it out when Michelle wanted to study abroad and couldn't miss the opportunity. I was always the fix. Not the person. Not the brother or the son. Just the solution. That week, everything kept unraveling. My mom sent a long message 2 days later, full of passive lines like, "I don't know why you're punishing us," and "This isn't how families treat each other." No mention of the accident. No mention of the hospital. Just frustration that I was changing. Then the money problem started surfacing. Michelle's car payment bounced. She texted me screenshots of the overdue notice. Said she thought there was a mistake with the automatic transfer. I ignored it. Erin emailed me, not texted, emailed, asking if I could please reinstate the loan payment just for this month. She framed it as temporary, again. It always was. Then came my dad. He called 3 times in a row, then left a message that wasn't angry or even confused, just tired. Said the mortgage payment hadn't gone through and that if something had changed, I should have been man enough to say so. Man enough. He wanted a conversation. But where was that conversation 4 days ago when I was bleeding in a trauma ward? That's when I knew they weren't sorry. They weren't reaching out because they realized what they'd done. They were reaching out because their comfort had been interrupted. It wasn't me they missed. It was the version of me that always said yes. I started getting calls from unfamiliar numbers. At first, I thought they were spam. Then I realized Erin had given my number to one of her classmates. She wanted them to help talk some sense into me. Michelle had her friend message me on Instagram, saying I was hurting everyone. Luke posted a cryptic story about how some people only show their true colors when they stop needing you. It was bizarre. Surreal. Like they had all agreed I was broken because I stopped playing my role. Then, my grandmother called again. She asked how I was healing. Said she had a pot of soup in the freezer if I wanted it. Never once asked about the money or the fallout. Just wanted to know if I needed anything. Same with Uncle Keith. He sent me a prepaid grocery delivery and said to rest up. The contrast was blinding. And that's when I started to feel it, not just anger, but power. For the first time in my life, I wasn't being used. I wasn't being manipulated. I was in control of who I let in, who got access. And one by one, the doors were closing. The panic from my family was just beginning. And I wasn't even close to done. By the end of the week, I stopped counting the missed calls. They weren't slowing down, they were multiplying. Michelle called 10 times in one morning. Erin emailed again, this time copying our dad. Luke tried tagging me in an old photo on Facebook with the caption, "Family sticks together, even when it's hard." It was like they were all trying to bait a reaction. Any reaction. I gave them none. Instead, I focused on something they hadn't yet remembered, the family business. I'd been running it behind the scenes for years. My dad started it, a mid-sized remodeling company that stayed afloat because I kept the books clean, negotiated supplier contracts, and handled the licenses and legal messes. My parents played the front-facing roles, but without me, it was a stack of cards balancing on trust and old habits. I'd built the structure. I'd kept it profitable. And I owned the LLC. Quietly transferred to me 5 years ago when my dad needed a personal loan and couldn't get one from a bank. They never read the fine print. I didn't think I'd ever use that leverage. I had kept things running because I wanted them to succeed. Because I thought we were a team. But after the accident? After their silence, their selfishness, and the wave of entitled messages? It was time to shift things. I didn't make a public announcement. I didn't call a meeting. I just logged into the back-end systems, paused the company's accounts payable, revoked admin access for every family member, and updated the website to reflect a new message. Operations paused. Under restructure. Then I emailed the suppliers directly, the electricians, drywall guys, cabinet wholesalers, and told them payments would resume shortly under a new structure. I was professional. Calm. Cold even. I knew it wouldn't take long for the fallout to hit. By the next afternoon, my dad called 7 times. Then my mom. She left a voicemail this time, emotional. Not angry, just panicked. Said the team had shown up for a project that morning and no one could access the client files. Said a supplier called about a hold. She ended with, What's happening? Please. This isn't like you. But it was exactly like me, the me they never took seriously. 2 hours later, I got an unexpected call from my cousin Kyle. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. He was always the quiet one at gatherings, never got involved in family messes. He said, "Hey, I know things are messy right now, but good for you. Seriously. I saw what they did after your crash. They knew. And they left anyway." I asked how he knew. He told me something I hadn't expected. Apparently, Luke had posted a story on the way to the cabin, a clip in the car where Aaron literally says, "Well, he's in the hospital, what are we gonna do, sit around and cry?" Followed by laughter. Kyle saw it before it got deleted. A few people in the extended family did. It wasn't just silence. They mocked it. That hit different. I sat with that one for a while. I thought their absence was neglect. But it was worse. It was dismissal. The next morning, I finalized the change. The company would continue, but without them. I filed paperwork to change the official address, froze all payroll access except my own, and scheduled a new meeting with a small crew I trusted. A few guys who'd stuck around even during slow seasons. I offered them contracts. Better ones. Ones I used to save for my family. Let my parents and siblings figure it out. Later that evening, Luke sent one more message. "You're overreacting. You're gonna burn the whole family down over one bad weekend?" I didn't reply. But I wanted to say, it wasn't one bad weekend. It was every single one you asked me to carry, and the first one I needed you left. They still didn't understand what was really happening. But they were about to learn. And not because I wanted revenge, but because for once, they were going to feel what it meant to stand on their own. Or fall. The fallout came fast, but not loud. It was like a quiet unraveling that got messier with every hour. I hadn't planned on checking in on them, but updates kept finding me. Contractors I'd worked with for years were forwarding me frantic messages from my dad. His tone was all over the place, one moment polite, the next threatening. He was demanding supplier access, asking why the accounts were frozen, claiming it was a glitch. Some of the guys just laughed and sent me screenshots. One wrote back, "Didn't know your old man was such a talker. Thought you handled all the real stuff." He was right. Luke, of course, took a different route. He started posting vague story updates. One showed the company van parked at the edge of the driveway with the caption, "When you give your whole life to something just to get blindsided." As if I hadn't kept him employed through at least 5 of his burnout career phases. The last job he had before working for the family business lasted 6 weeks, and I helped him get that one too. Then Erin messaged me again. She tried to come in soft, said she knew things were weird, but hoped I could front her tuition. Just one last time. That she'd talk to Mom, and everyone was ready to apologize. She even added, "We were just overwhelmed during the trip. No one knew how serious your crash was." I didn't respond. Because I'd heard her say it. On video. I hadn't told anyone I'd seen the clip Kyle mentioned, the one Luke posted briefly during their drive to the cabin, where Aaron literally laughed and said, "Well, he's in the hospital, what are we gonna do, sit around and cry?" I found it saved in a screen recording someone else had taken. It circulated in our extended family chat briefly before getting pulled down. They joked. Mocked. Then drove off without a second thought. I didn't say a word about it. But it was there, in the back of my mind, every time I looked at a new message pretending to care. Then something unexpected happened. My mom showed up. Alone. She didn't call ahead. Just rang the buzzer at my building around 8 p.m. I saw her on the security feed, standing there holding what looked like a tin of food and one of those soft grocery bags filled with what I guessed were freezer meals. She stood like she used to at the end of parent-teacher nights, quiet, unsure what mood she was walking into. I debated not answering. I was tired. My ribs still ached. But curiosity won. I buzzed her in. She didn't say anything right away. Just placed the bag on the counter like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Then finally, "I didn't come to talk you into anything. I just didn't want your freezer to be empty." We stood in silence. Then she asked, "Are you going to leave us behind for good?" I said, "I already did. You just didn't notice." She didn't cry. Didn't argue. She nodded slowly, like she had expected that answer but hoped I'd say something else. Then she left. And for a moment, I actually believed that might be the end of it. But it wasn't. 3 days later, I got a letter. Not an email. A real letter in an envelope, with my name handwritten on the front. It was from my grandmother. Inside, a simple note. "You've done the right thing, even if it feels heavy. I've been watching this for years. I knew it would come to this eventually. Just don't forget to leave space for peace when you're ready." Taped to the bottom was a folded check. For $3,100. The same amount they'd requested from me for the cabin weekend. The check wasn't from guilt. It wasn't even a message. It was just her way of saying, "You don't owe them. They owe you. And I know which side I'm on." I didn't cash it. Still haven't. But I kept it. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't alone. And that mattered more than anything. By the third week, the noise stopped. The texts that used to come every morning, the missed calls, the frantic voicemails, the half-hearted apologies, they all just disappeared. At first, I thought maybe it was a pause, one of those guilt-based silences that comes before a new wave of manipulation. But it wasn't. It was surrender. They finally got it. I wasn't coming back. There was no version of this where I returned to the same place in the family structure. No more fixer. No more backup plan. No more unpaid emotional labor packaged as love. Whatever image they had of me, the steady one, the helper, the guy who always showed up when it counted, it was gone. Because when it counted for me, they weren't there. The company kept going. Smaller, cleaner, healthier. I kept only the crew that worked hard, showed up, and didn't expect shortcuts. It was slower at first, but more honest. I handed over field operations to 2 of the guys I trusted and focused on strategy and finance, the parts one actually liked. I got offers from other firms to consult. Started building something for myself. Not for the family. For me. I didn't make an announcement. I didn't burn down their house or send a dramatic message. I just walked away. Luke ended up working the night shift at a fulfillment center out by the freeway. He told one of the drywall guys I used to manage that it was just a placeholder. But I knew better. That was the job now. No more backdoor handouts. No more work van, no more under-the-table pay. Just reality. Erin pulled out of grad school. Sent out a post on social media about taking a mental health break. Her old professor reached out to me for a recommendation, not realizing what happened. I didn't reply. Michelle quietly sold her car and moved back in with my parents. They pretended it was temporary, like everything else. The kind of temporary that turns into a year. As for my mom, she tried again one more time. A text around 9 p.m. on a Sunday night. Said she'd been thinking about everything. Said it was strange, not hearing from me. Told me the family dinners weren't the same and asked if I'd consider dropping by one day soon. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I was tempted. But because for the first time, I didn't feel anything. No anger. No sadness. Just a kind of stillness I hadn't felt in years. Like I was standing outside a house I used to live in, one that never really felt like home, and realizing I didn't miss it. I never really had. I didn't answer. I went out the next day and bought a plane ticket to Oregon. A place I'd always wanted to visit but never had time for. I rented a cabin, alone, and spent a week surrounded by trees, fog, and total quiet. No favors. No obligations. No one asking for anything. And for the first time, I felt what it was like to exist for myself. Not as a support system. Not as a bank. Just as me. I still talk to my grandmother. Still visit Uncle Keith now and then. They never brought up the family split. They didn't have to. They saw it happen in slow motion over the years, just like I did. My grandmother still sends cards. Sometimes with notes. Sometimes with checks she knows I won't cash. Just gestures that mean something. That's what real love looks like. People say, family is everything. But they never talk about what happens when your family is the thing holding you back. When love comes with conditions. When loyalty is one-sided. I had to crash, literally, to finally see it. And I'm not angry anymore. I'm not waiting for apologies. I'm not hoping for change. They've got their lives. I've got mine. The difference is, I built mine on truth. And peace. They built theirs on borrowed time. And I'm no longer the one paying for it.